The night was quiet, too quiet for the kind of thing happening behind the tall marble walls of the Carson estate. The moon hung low, casting a pale glow over the wide backyard garden where fresh soil had been dug open. And there, kneeling in the dirt with her expensive red gown now smeared with mud, was Victoria Carson, the billionaire boss lady the whole city adored. But tonight, she didn't look like a glamorous contractor or the generous businesswoman people praised on the news. Tonight, she looked like a predator cleaning up her mess. Her diamond bracelet jingled softly as she pushed a lifeless body into the shallow pit. The body belonged to Maya Thompson, the beautiful young maid who had worked for her for nearly a year, 21, bright-eyed, polite, with dreams bigger than her paycheck. But now Maya's once hopeful face lay still, covered halfway with soil. Victoria wiped sweat from her forehead and whispered harshly, "Next time, mind your business." But what Victoria didn't know, what would change everything, was that someone else was nearby.
Before we continue, if you believe our stories deserve to be heard, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves meaningful African tales. Let's keep our stories alive together.
Across the fence, hidden behind a cluster of bushes, a passerby walking home from a late-night shift had stopped suddenly. He wasn't sure what he was seeing at first, but when he pointed his shaking phone toward the yard and zoomed in, the image became clear: Victoria Carson burying her maid. The man gasped softly. Victoria froze. She lifted her head slowly, turning her face in the direction of the noise. For a moment only the wind moved. Then her eyes narrowed. Her body stiffened. Something or someone was there. She rose to her feet, her shoes crunching on gravel. She scanned the darkness, her expression sharp, dangerous, the kind that suggested she was used to removing obstacles, living or dead. "Who is there?" she whispered. The passerby's breathing grew uneven. His finger trembled over the stop button on his phone. He didn't know whether to run, hide, scream, or keep filming. His instincts screamed that if the boss lady saw him, he wouldn't make it out alive. Victoria stepped closer. 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 Her shadow stretched long across the grass, reaching toward the fence like a claw. Just then, a loud horn blared from the street nearby. Victoria flinched. She turned her head sharply. The passerby didn't wait. He slipped backward quietly, heart pounding, and disappeared into the darkness, clutching his phone like it was burning his hand. When Victoria looked back toward the bushes, whoever had been there was gone. But her face hardened. Someone had seen her. Someone had evidence. And she wasn't the kind of woman to let that go. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small black device, a phone with no apps, no contacts visible, nothing normal. She dialed a hidden number and spoke in a low, controlled voice. "We have a problem." Then she looked down at Maya's grave, shovel in hand, and continued burying the maid as though nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Hours earlier, the Carson estate had looked very different. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, filling the luxurious mansion with gold warmth. Staff members moved quietly through the hallways, housekeepers polishing surfaces, gardeners trimming hedges, chefs preparing the evening menu. Among them was young Maya, her curly black hair tied neatly into a bun and her uniform perfectly pressed. Maya had grown up in a crowded neighborhood and worked multiple jobs since she was 16 to support her mother and little brother. Getting hired by Victoria Carson, the billionaire business icon, felt like a dream. Good pay, free meals, a clean environment. People respected Victoria everywhere. At least until the night everything changed. But earlier that morning, Maya still believed she worked for a saint. She walked toward the study with a basket of freshly cleaned towels. As she approached the door, she heard raised voices inside, Victoria and a man whose voice she didn't recognize. "You said the shipment was clean," the man hissed. "It was," Victoria snapped. "Someone tipped the police. If this happens again, you and I are finished." Maya froze. "Shipment? Police?" Why were they whispering like criminals? She stepped back, trying not to make the floor creak. Inside, the man continued, "We need to move everything before Friday. The streets are hot." Victoria's reply was cold. "Then start the clearing tonight, and if anyone asks questions, you know what to do." Maya's heart pounded. She realized she wasn't supposed to hear any of this. She turned to leave quietly, but her elbow brushed the edge of a small flower vase on a table in the hallway. It wobbled once, twice, and fell with a soft crash. The entire house went silent. The study door swung open. Victoria stepped out. Her eyes landed on Maya. Sharp, suspicious, unblinking. "Maya," she said slowly, "how long have you been standing here?" Maya swallowed hard. She forced a smile that didn't reach her trembling hands. I just came to drop towels, ma'am." The vase slipped. Victoria stared at her for a long, tense moment. Then she smiled, a smile too calm, too gentle, too wrong. "Be more careful next time," she said. She closed the door. But inside that same room, the man said darkly, "She heard us." Victoria's response was chilling. "I know." From that moment on, Maya had a feeling something terrible was coming. She began noticing strange things: the way Victoria's private guards watched her more closely, the way Victoria always appeared suddenly whenever Maya walked past certain rooms, the way Victoria's friendliness vanished overnight. Maya wanted to quit, but she needed the money. She wanted to tell someone, but who would believe her? She wanted to stay invisible, but Victoria's eyes followed her everywhere. Then, that evening, Maya made the mistake of choosing the wrong hallway at the wrong time. Victoria caught her looking at a locked cabinet, one Maya had never touched. Inside were packets of powder, neatly sealed enough to supply an entire city. Victoria didn't shout. She didn't panic. She simply whispered one sentence that froze Maya's blood. "I warned you." Everything afterward felt like a blur: Victoria calling her guards, Maya trying to escape, the struggle, the sudden darkness. And now Maya lay in a shallow grave. Back at the burial site, Victoria finished packing the soil and stood quietly, breathing heavily. Then she looked again toward the direction where she had sensed movement. Her eyes hardened further. Someone had watched her bury Maya. Someone had filmed her. And she was going to find them. She walked toward her car, pulled out her phone again and said, "Activate the search." The voice on the other end replied, "Right away." Victoria ended the call and got into the car. But before she drove off, she looked back one last time at the fresh mound of earth. Then she whispered, "No loose ends." The engine growled. The taillights glowed red. And the car sped into the night. But the passerby, still running breathlessly with the shocking video on his phone, had no idea that his life was now in danger. And Victoria Carson was already hunting him. The morning after Maya's disappearance, the Carson estate looked peaceful again, almost too peaceful, as if the night's horrors had never happened. The sun rose brightly over the mansion, glistening against the tall glass walls and reflecting off the spotless garden paths. Staff members walked around quietly, following the daily routine, though everyone whispered the same question. "Has anyone seen Maya?" No one had. But Victoria Carson walked through the hallways with calm confidence, wearing a crisp cream-colored suit and heels that clicked rhythmically against the marble floors. She greeted her staff with a soft smile, the kind that made people believe everything in her world was perfect. Behind those smiles, though, her mind was blazing like wildfire. The passerby. The camera. The evidence. She repeated those three thoughts over and over again. After leaving the burial site, she didn't go home to rest. She drove straight to a nondescript warehouse outside the city where her most trusted men operated. Their job was simple: erase problems. Victoria stood in front of them now, 6 men dressed in black, strong, silent, loyal. "Someone filmed me last night," she said. The men tensed instantly. "Find him, I want the footage before the end of the day." One man stepped forward. "Do we know who it was?" Victoria's jaw tightened. "Not yet, but start by sweeping every camera around the Carson estate. Traffic, street corners, home security systems, anything. He couldn't have disappeared into thin air." The men nodded and dispersed. Victoria turned away, her eyes cold. No loose ends. While Victoria plotted her next move, across town, the passerby, whose name was Jordan Brooks, a 27-year-old delivery driver, sat inside his tiny apartment, staring at his phone like it would explode. He had barely slept a minute. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing: Victoria shoveling dirt over Maya's body, Maya's lifeless arms sticking out, Victoria's face turning in his direction, the coldness in her eyes. Jordan had grown up watching documentaries about dangerous crime families and cartel bosses who operated behind a polished public image. But he never imagined he would witness something like this in real life. He replayed the video again, his hands trembling. There was no mistake. Victoria Carson, the billionaire who donated to schools, the woman who stood on magazine covers, the one people called the city's miracle maker, was a drug baron and a murderer. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Jordan whispered to himself. If he went to the police, would they even believe him? The Carson name carried weight, money, influence, power. He paced the room anxiously. He thought of texting his sister, but he feared dragging his family into danger. He thought of deleting the video, but his conscience screamed that Maya deserved justice. He thought of doing nothing, but that felt like betrayal. Jordan slumped onto his bed. "What would anyone do in my shoes?" he muttered. He didn't know the answer. But someone was already looking for him. Back at the estate, Victoria was interrupted by the sound of her consultant knocking gently on her office door. It was Dr. Evelyn Hart, a brilliant strategist whose job was to clean the financial tracks of Victoria's illegal operations. "You look restless today," Evelyn observed as she walked in, adjusting her glasses. Victoria didn't reply immediately. She stared out the window with her arms crossed. Evelyn closed the door behind her. "What happened?" Victoria turned slowly. "My maid overheard a conversation she wasn't supposed to, and last night someone filmed me while I was taking care of it." The calm expression on Evelyn's face vanished. "Victoria, do you know what this means if that video spreads?" "That's why it won't," Victoria cut in sharply. "I've already sent my men, they'll find him." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "You're playing a dangerous game, you're too visible, too popular, too watched." Victoria's lips curved slightly. "That's what makes me untouchable." But deep down she knew Evelyn was right. One small crack and her empire could crumble. Evelyn sat down and gave her a long, piercing look. "You should start preparing for the possibility that someone might use this against you." Victoria's silence was cold and heavy. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message flashed across the screen. "We found a lead." Victoria stood up immediately. Her heartbeat quickened, not with fear but with the thrill of the hunt. "Send me the details," she replied. Later that afternoon, Jordan finally gathered the courage to leave his apartment. He placed his phone inside his jacket and stepped onto the street, trying to look normal even though panic raced through his veins. He walked toward the bus stop, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds. Unknown to him, a black SUV rolled slowly down the street behind him. Inside were two of Victoria's men, scanning faces, watching body movements, searching. Then one of them spotted him. "That's him," the driver muttered. "He matches the witness description from the security sweep." The passenger grabbed his walkie-talkie. "We see someone who fits the profile." Jordan suddenly felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Something felt wrong. Someone was watching him, he could feel it. He turned his head slightly. The SUV slowed even more. Jordan's heartbeat thundered. Then the SUV doors unlocked. Jordan reacted instantly, instinct overpowering fear. He ran. He sprinted down the street, dodging people, weaving through traffic, clutching his jacket tightly. The SUV accelerated after him. Jordan darted into a side alley. The SUV skidded to a stop at the alley entrance. Victoria's men jumped out and followed the sound of pounding footsteps echoing through the narrow space. Jordan pushed himself harder, lungs burning. He didn't know where he was running, only that he couldn't get caught. He turned a corner and collided with someone. They both crashed to the ground. Jordan's phone slid across the concrete. He scrambled to reach it. But a large boot stomped in front of him, blocking his path. Jordan looked up, straight into the cold eyes of Victoria's lead enforcer. The man grabbed Jordan by the collar. "Where's the video?" he growled. Fear froze Jordan where he knelt. The enforcer's grip tightened. Jordan swallowed hard. He could lie. He could fight. He could beg. But none of those choices seemed like they would work. The enforcer leaned closer, voice low and threatening. "If you give me what I want, maybe you'll walk away from this alley." Jordan tried to speak, but his words failed him. And then, bang! A loud noise erupted behind them. The enforcer jerked his head sharply. Jordan gasped. Someone else had appeared at the mouth of the alley. And whatever happened next would change everything. The loud bang echoed sharply through the narrow alley, bouncing off the cracked walls like a gunshot. Jordan's heart nearly jumped out of his chest. Victoria's lead enforcer released his collar for a split second, just long enough for Jordan to stumble backward and gasp for air. At the mouth of the alley stood a tall figure holding a metal trash bin lid he had slammed against a dumpster to distract the men. It was the neighborhood electrician, Mr. Deshaun Miller, a 48-year-old man known for minding his business, except this time. "Hey," Deshaun shouted, voice firm though his hands trembled, "let the boy go." The enforcer turned slowly, analyzing him like prey. "This doesn't concern you," he said coldly. Deshaun swallowed hard but didn't back away. "Then it concerns me now." Jordan, still on the ground, whispered desperately, "Run, sir, they're dangerous." But Deshaun didn't move. He adjusted his cap, planting his feet like someone ready to die on that spot if he had to. The enforcer took one threatening step toward him. Deshaun lifted the trash bin lid higher like a makeshift shield. Before the enforcer could strike, a woman's voice echoed from an apartment window above. "I've already called the police, they're on their way." The enforcer froze. His men exchanged uneasy looks. The last thing they wanted was police officers combing through the area while they were trying to hunt down a witness. They glanced back toward Jordan, still sprawled on the concrete, panting, terrified. They had seconds to decide. The enforcer hissed angrily, "Grab the phone." One of the men lunged toward the device near Jordan's foot. Jordan kicked it as hard as he could. The phone slid across the ground, bounced, hit the alley wall, and dropped into a storm drain with a splash. Everyone froze. Jordan's heart shattered. The video. The evidence. Gone, or maybe not. He didn't know if the drain destroyed it, but he prayed the file had backed up somewhere. The enforcer cursed loudly. Sirens wailed in the distance. The men backed away. "This isn't over," the enforcer growled at Jordan. Then he pointed a finger at Deshaun. "And you stay out of our way." With that, the men rushed back toward their SUV and sped off just moments before the first police cruiser turned onto the street. Jordan collapsed onto the ground, shaking uncontrollably. Deshaun rushed to help him sit upright. "Son, what did you get yourself into?" Deshaun asked, voice filled with worry. Jordan struggled to speak. It's not me, I saw something terrible." "What did you see?" Jordan hesitated. Even saying it out loud felt dangerous, like the walls themselves might snitch. He whispered, "Victoria Carson, she killed her maid." Deshaun's face drained of color. "What, the billionaire woman, are you sure?" Jordan nodded, tears forming. "I recorded it, but the video just fell into the drain." Deshaun exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. "Lord have mercy, son, that woman has money that can buy half this city. You're in serious danger." Jordan knew that already, but hearing it spoken aloud made the fear 10 times heavier. The police officers who arrived were more interested in the alley fight than the bigger story lurking behind it. When Jordan tried to explain that he was being chased, they asked basic questions but didn't push too deeply. They wrote a report, told him to be careful, and drove away without any suspicion of the deeper crime. Deshaun watched them leave inside. "That's why you can't go to just anybody with this. Some of these officers eat at her charity events, some want donations for their precinct. You need someone who isn't scared of her." Jordan asked weakly, "Like who?" Deshaun looked around and lowered his voice. "There's a journalist I know, hard-headed woman, doesn't fear anybody breathing. If something big is happening, she'll chase it. Her name is Alicia Monroe." Jordan stared at him. "A journalist, what if she doesn't believe me?" "Then she doesn't believe you," Deshaun said. "But she will listen, and that's more help than what you'll get running alone." Jordan wiped his face with the back of his hand. He suddenly felt how heavy his world had become in just 24 hours. "Do you know where to find her?" he asked. Deshaun nodded. "She works at Metro Voice News. You can't walk into that building looking like you just ran from a massacre. Come to my shop first, we'll clean you up." Jordan looked at the drain where his phone had disappeared. "Do you think the video is still inside the phone?" Deshawn shrugged, maybe, maybe not, but sometimes the truth finds a way to survive even when we think we've lost it. Jordan nodded slowly. But on the other side of the city, Victoria Carson was not resting. She sat in her black office, hands clasped, eyes cold. Her enforcers stood before her. We located the witness. Victoria's eyes sharpened. And he got away, someone interfered, the phone was lost. Lost, she repeated quietly. Yes, it fell into a drain. Victoria tapped her fingers once, twice, 3 times on the table. Then she leaned back. So the video might still exist. Yes, ma'am. And the witness. He's alive. Victoria's expression darkened like a storm cloud swallowing the sun. She rose, walked to the window, and spoke with chilling calmness. Then we are not finished. Find him. I don't care if you have to search every drain, every road, every block. Bring me the truth or bring me silence. The enforcer nodded and left. Victoria stared out over the city, a city she believed she controlled. But for the first time, something slipped beyond her grasp. Someone out there had seen behind her mask. And that could destroy everything. That evening, Jordan sat in Deshawn's small repair shop while the older man cleaned the cut on his forehead. You sure you want to talk to this journalist? Deshawn asked again. Jordan nodded. If I don't, she'll kill me. I know she will. Deshawn tightened the bandage, then we move carefully. As they stepped outside, Jordan felt a breeze touch his skin. For a moment he felt a small sense of hope, weak but there. But then across the street, a black car rolled slowly past. Jordan froze. Deshawn whispered, they're still watching. Jordan's knees weakened. Victoria Carson wasn't giving up. And the real war was only beginning. The next morning, the city buzzed with its usual noise, cars honking, vendors calling out prices, schoolchildren rushing along the sidewalks, but Jordan felt none of its normal rhythm. Every step he took felt heavy, calculated, cautious. He kept glancing over his shoulder as he and Deshawn boarded a crowded bus heading toward Metro Voice News. You're shaking, Deshawn murmured as they sat beside each other. I'm trying not to fall apart, Jordan whispered. Deshawn nodded sympathetically. Just tell her everything, she'll know what to do. Jordan hoped that was true. As the bus moved, he stared out of the window. Every black SUV he saw made his chest tighten. Every stranger's face looked suspicious. He felt like a hunted animal crossing open ground. Meanwhile, across town, Victoria sat at a long glass table for breakfast, elegantly slicing through a plate of papaya and toast. She looked calm, too calm, as if she hadn't buried a young woman less than 24 hours ago. Her assistant, Samuel, stood nearby with a tablet in hand. Ma'am, your meeting with the construction board is moved to 3 o'clock. Victoria didn't look up. Cancel it. Samuel blinked. Cancel the board meeting. Yes. Should I reschedule? No. Victoria placed her knife down gently and spoke in a tone that carried sharp edges. Nothing matters until that witness is found. Samuel nodded nervously. The men are searching everywhere. They're checking bus stations, taxi routes, convenience stores with working cameras. They're trying to trace where he ran after the alley incident. Victoria sipped her tea slowly. Trying isn't enough. Samuel swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Victoria continued calmly. If the video still exists, my entire reputation collapses. Politicians will turn their backs on me, investors will run, and my operation, everything I've built, crashes into dust. She lifted her gaze finally, and Samuel felt the temperature in the room drop. Find him. Samuel bowed his head. I'll update security right away. At Metro Voice News headquarters, reporters bustled about, rushing between desks while screens displayed breaking stories. Phones rang nonstop. Editors shouted for last-minute rewrites. Jordan had never been in a newsroom before. The chaos overwhelmed him. Deshawn placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't panic, she'll see you soon. A receptionist with bright eyes and curly hair greeted them politely before paging the journalist. Within minutes, Alicia Monroe appeared, tall, sharp-featured, with thick braids tied behind her head and a no-nonsense expression. She wore jeans, a simple blouse, and a press badge hanging over her chest. You're Deshawn, she asked. Yes, ma'am, he replied. And this is the young man who says he has something urgent, she asked, eyes shifting toward Jordan. Jordan nodded shakily. Follow me, she said briskly. She led them into a small interview room with soundproof walls and a single recording camera mounted in the corner. She closed the door behind them and gestured for them to sit. So, Alicia said, folding her arms, what's so serious that you showed up without an appointment? Jordan inhaled deeply. I witnessed a murder. Alicia's eyes flickered, but she stayed controlled. Go on. Jordan told her everything from seeing Victoria bury Maya to filming it to being chased to losing the phone in the storm drain. His voice cracked several times, but Alicia didn't interrupt. She watched him closely, studying every detail, every tremor. When he finished, the room fell into a cold silence. Alicia finally spoke. A claim like this against a woman like Victoria Carson is massive. Jordan nodded miserably. I know, but I swear I'm telling the truth. Alicia tapped her fingers on the table slowly. Victoria Carson, she repeated. America's smiling billionaire, the woman every politician praises, the woman every charity highlights, the woman every business magazine calls the future. She leaned forward. And you're telling me she buried her maid in her backyard? Jordan nodded again. Did anyone else see? Yes, Jordan said. A few neighbors heard noise, but only I saw the actual burial. And the video? It fell into the storm drain, Jordan replied. I think it's still inside the phone, but I can't reach it. Alicia stood abruptly. Then that's where we start. Jordan blinked. You believe me? Alicia gave a short, humorless laugh. I've spent 10 years exposing people who look innocent on camera but rot on the inside. If you're lying, I'll find out quickly. But if you're telling the truth, then we have a story that will shake the city. She grabbed her jacket. Show me the exact drain. Deshawn stood too. You sure that's safe? Alicia smirked. Nothing about journalism is safe. They left the building together. But as they walked outside, a pair of eyes watched from across the street. Victoria's enforcer. He raised his phone to his ear. I've found the witness, he said quietly. And he's not alone. Alicia, Jordan, and Deshawn reached the alley where the phone had fallen. They crouched near the metal drain cover. The sound of passing cars echoed overhead. Alicia opened her bag, pulled out a flashlight, and shined it through the grid. There, Jordan whispered. At the bottom, wedged between two metal bars, lay the phone, still intact but soaked. Alicia exhaled. If the file auto-backed to any cloud storage, we might still save the footage, but we have to get the phone out. How? Jordan asked. Deshawn looked around and spotted a long piece of construction wire discarded near a dumpster. Maybe this will help. He bent it carefully, hooked it through the drain cover, and fished for the phone. After several attempts, he pulled it up enough for Alicia to grab. The phone dripped water onto the pavement. Alicia wiped it with her sleeve. We need a tech expert, someone who can extract the memory card, maybe repair the motherboard. Just then, the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Jordan stiffened. Alicia turned. Deshawn's face tightened. At the far end of the alley, three familiar figures slowly stepped into view, Victoria's men. The enforcer smirked. Found you. Jordan's breath hitched. Alicia whispered, run. But there was no exit the other way. The men walked forward in a triangle formation, blocking the path. You should have minded your business, the enforcer said to Jordan, then he looked at Alicia. And you should have stayed in your newsroom. Alicia held the damaged phone tightly behind her back. The enforcer stepped closer. Then closer. Then. A loud rumble echoed behind them. A truck turned into the alley, headlights flashing brightly. The enforcer paused. And the truck accelerated.
If this story is already touching your heart, please take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to Black Race Tailies, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us keep telling these powerful African and Black community stories to the world.
The truck's engine roared like thunder as it barreled into the alley, its headlights blinding everyone in its path. Jordan shielded his eyes, Alicia stepped back instinctively, and Deshawn grabbed Jordan's arm to pull him aside. Victoria's enforcer reacted first. Move, he shouted at his men. The three men scattered. The truck screeched to a sudden stop just inches before hitting them. The driver, an older man in a dusty cap, stuck his head out and yelled angrily, "Are you people mad? Blocking the road like goats, move from here." His voice echoed through the narrow walls. He had no idea he had just saved 3 innocent lives. The enforcer glared at the driver, but the alley had become too exposed. People from nearby shops were now poking their heads out, watching curiously. A few pedestrians began recording on their phones. The enforcer clenched his jaw. He wasn't afraid of a fight, he simply couldn't risk public attention. With a sharp wave of his hand, he signaled his men. "Fall back." They slowly backed out of the alley, never breaking eye contact with Jordan and Alicia. Before disappearing around the corner, the enforcer pointed at Jordan. "This ends soon." Then they were gone. Jordan collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. "Why won't they stop? Why won't they leave me alone?" he whispered. Alicia placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because you're holding the truth they can't afford to let survive, that's why we have to move faster than them." Deshawn exhaled shakily. "We need to get out of here before they circle back." Alicia nodded firmly, agreed. She tucked the damaged phones safely inside her bag and led them out of the alley through a busy street filled with crowds, a temporary shield. Across the city, Victoria's patience was fading. She stood in her penthouse office, tapping her nails against the edge of her glass desk. Samuel entered cautiously. "Ma'am, your men reported contact with the witness." "Did they retrieve the phone?" Victoria asked sharply. "No, they were interrupted." Victoria's jaw tightened. "By who?" "A journalist, Alicia Monroe." Victoria's eyes narrowed slowly. "I know that name." Samuel swallowed nervously. "She has a reputation for exposing corruption. She's stubborn, persistent, publicly trusted." Victoria turned away from him, staring through the window at the city skyline. She whispered, "She's a threat." Samuel didn't respond. Victoria continued, voice icy cold. "If she's involved, the risk doubles. That woman thrives on scandal." Samuel nodded. "What are your orders?" Victoria turned, her expression calm in a way that was far more dangerous than rage. "Destroy the witness, destroy the journalist, destroy the evidence, and do it quietly." "Yes, ma'am." As Samuel left, Victoria closed her eyes for a moment. She hated risks, she hated unpredictability, she hated loose ends. And now she had 2 of them. Back in Deshawn's repair shop, Alicia placed the wet, damaged phone onto his workbench. Jordan sat nearby, gripping the edge of a chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. "You think you can fix it?" Alicia asked Deshawn. "I'm good with wires, not phones," he replied, scratching his head. "This needs a specialist." "Well, do you know one?" she asked. "Yeah," he said after a moment. "A young girl named Taryn. She repairs electronics better than anyone I know. She doesn't ask too many questions either." "Where is she?" Alicia asked. 2 blocks away, but she won't touch something like this if she thinks it's criminal trouble." Alicia looked at Jordan. "We don't have to tell her everything, we just need the memory card." Jordan nodded slowly. "Let's go." Before leaving, Alicia grabbed a burner phone from her bag and laid it in front of Jordan. "You're going to need this, your real number might already be compromised." Jordan nodded again, grateful. The 3 of them slipped into the bustling streets. People walked past without noticing the danger trailing behind them. Somewhere, Victoria's men were searching every district. The net was tightening. Taryn's repair shop was small but impressive inside, walls lined with gadgets, wires hanging from hooks, and computer parts neatly arranged on shelves. Stevie Wonder played softly from a speaker in the corner. Taryn, a slim young woman with box braids and sharp eyes, looked up from her soldering station when they entered. "Deshawn, what's happening?" she asked. "I need your help," Deshawn said, setting the phone on the counter. Taryn examined the device carefully. "Water damage, impact cracks, this phone fell hard." "Can you retrieve the memory card?" Alicia asked. "I can try," Taryn said slowly, "but the internal damage might be bad." "Try your best," Alicia replied. Taryn nodded and pulled out her tools. Jordan stood beside her, watching nervously as she worked. Every tiny click or spark made his heartbeat quicken. After several tense minutes, Taryn lifted the back casing and examined the soaked interior. "The card is still intact," she finally said. Jordan breathed out in relief. "But," Taryn added slowly, "I'll need a few hours to dry the board. If the chip isn't fried, we may recover the files. I'll give you a call." Alicia leaned closer. "Taryn, this is extremely important. Don't let anyone else touch this phone, don't leave your shop, and if anyone strange comes asking questions, call me immediately." Taryn blinked. "You're scaring me, what's going on?" "Just be careful," Alicia said. They left the shop, stepping back into the street. Jordan finally asked the question swirling in his mind. "What if the footage can't be recovered?" Alicia looked at him with determination. "Then we find another way to expose her, but as long as Taryn has that chip, there's still hope." Jordan nodded, though his fear didn't vanish. Just then Deshawn paused. "You hear that?" A car door slammed somewhere behind them. Jordan's skin crawled. A black SUV had pulled up near Taryn's shop. Victoria's men stepped out. All three of them froze. The enforcer spotted Taryn's window. Alicia whispered, urgent and low. "They found her, run." Jordan didn't hesitate. They bolted down the street. And the chase began again. The sound of heavy boots hitting the pavement echoed behind them as Jordan, Alicia, and Deshawn sprinted down the crowded street. People jumped aside, startled. Vendors shouted as tables wobbled. A cart full of oranges toppled and rolled across the sidewalk, but Jordan didn't dare slow down. "They're gaining on us," Jordan yelled, glancing back. Alicia grabbed his arm. "Don't look back, just run." Victoria's enforcer shoved through the crowd with frightening speed, his men closed behind him. Their eyes were locked on Jordan, on Alicia, on anyone connected to the video that could destroy their boss. Deshawn pointed ahead breathlessly. "Cut through that market." They darted into a bustling open-air market where tightly packed stalls created a maze of narrow pathways. Spices filled the air, voices blended into a chaotic hum. "Move, move, move," Alicia shouted, weaving between baskets of tomatoes and plantains. The enforcer followed, knocking over crates, ignoring the angry cries of sellers. One vendor swung a broom at him, but he shoved her aside without breaking stride. Jordan felt his lungs burning, sweat trickled down his face. "Where are we going?" he panted. "Anywhere they can't corner us," Alicia said. But it was too late. They reached the end of the market and found a construction site blocking their way, the entrance sealed with tall metal fencing. A dead end. Jordan froze. "Now what?" Alicia scanned the area. "There has to be another way around." But the enforcer's loud, steady footsteps were already approaching. He appeared between the stalls, eyes fixed on them like a hawk that had locked onto its prey. His voice was calm but deadly. "Give me the phone and this ends." Alicia stepped in front of Jordan protectively. "You're not getting anything." The enforcer smirked. "You think you're heroes? You think exposing her will save anyone? Victoria owns this city. She owns the police. She owns the politicians, your children fighting a hurricane." Jordan's hands shook uncontrollably. Alicia kept her stance firm. Deshawn whispered, "Alicia, we need a plan." The enforcer took a step forward. Alicia noticed a construction chute hanging overhead, a long tube workers used to drop debris into dumpsters. She leaned toward Deshawn and whispered quickly, "Boost Jordan." "What?" "Boost him now." Before Deshawn could question her, she grabbed Jordan's arms. Deshawn cupped his hands and lifted Jordan upward. Jordan scrambled to grip the side of the construction chute. "What are you doing?" he gasped. "Hiding the memory card," Alicia whispered. "Climb now." Jordan hesitated just a second too long. The enforcer charged. Alicia shoved Jordan upward with all her strength. Go. Jordan swung himself inside the chute just as the enforcer reached them. Alicia and Deshawn blocked his path, buying Jordan seconds, only seconds, to slide through the tube. Inside the chute, Jordan tumbled downward, bouncing painfully off the plastic walls until he fell into a heap of soft dust inside a large metal dumpster. He groaned, "Oh, ow." But he was alive. He sat up and looked around. The dumpster was tall, dirty, and partially covered with a loose wooden lid. Through a crack, he could see the shadows of Alicia and Deshawn still confronting the enforcer. Alicia stood tall, unflinching. "You're not getting him." The enforcer lifted her by the front of her shirt and growled, "You think you matter, you think your words matter, I'll." Before he could finish, a loud whistle pierced the air. A group of construction workers, all wearing bright orange helmets, stood nearby, watching the altercation. "Hey," the foreman shouted angrily, "get away from our site." The enforcer looked around. Too many witnesses again, too much attention. He released Alicia slowly. "This isn't finished," he snarled. He gestured to his men. They backed away, disappearing into the market crowds once more. Alicia's knees weakened, but Deshawn steadied her. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded breathlessly. "Jordan, we have to find Jordan." Jordan, still inside the dumpster, pushed the lid up gently. "I'm here," he whispered loudly. Alicia spun around. "Jordan." Deshawn helped him climb out. Jordan's face was streaked with dust, bruised, terrified, but alive. Alicia grabbed his shoulders firmly. "Listen to me, we cannot keep running forever. We need to make a move that protects us and exposes her at the same time." Jordan swallowed hard. "But how? We don't even know if the video survived." Alicia took a deep breath. "We have one thing Victoria doesn't have." "What?" Jordan asked. "Time." She continued. "She's panicking, she's making mistakes. We need to use that. While Taryn works on the memory card, we need a backup plan in case the video can't be recovered." Jordan's eyebrows knit together. "What backup plan?" Alicia looked him in the eyes. "You will tell your story on camera." Jordan froze. "Me on record with my face." Deshawn stepped closer. "Son, she already tried to kill you. The only way to survive now is to stop hiding and shine a light so bright she can't silence you without exposing herself." Jordan's chest tightened. Going public could protect him. Or destroy him. Alicia placed a comforting hand on his arm. "The moment your name hits the news, she can't touch you. Everyone will be watching." Jordan closed his eyes. He thought of Maya. He thought of the grave. He thought of Victoria's cold, unblinking eyes. He thought of running, hiding, fearing every shadow. And finally, he thought of justice. He opened his eyes. "Okay," he whispered, "I'll do it." Alicia nodded firmly. "Good, then we move fast." But what none of them knew was that Victoria had already unleashed her most dangerous plan yet, and the next strike wouldn't fail. By the time they returned to Deshawn's shop, the afternoon sky had darkened beneath thick clouds, as if the weather itself sensed the danger gathering around them. Jordan paced back and forth restlessly, his hands trembling in a way he couldn't control. Alicia stood near the window, watching cars pass while keeping her eyes sharp for anything suspicious. Deshawn locked all 3 bolts on his shop door and turned to face them. "We don't have much time. You going public means we need a safe location, somewhere Victoria can't reach." Alicia nodded. "Metro Voice has secured interview rooms, but the moment Jordan appears on camera, we can't stay there. Journalists get attacked more than you think, especially when exposing people with power." Jordan swallowed, his throat dry, the weight of what he was about to do pressed on his chest like a cinder block. What if people don't believe me?" he asked. Alicia turned from the window and faced him. "Jordan, people don't need to believe you instantly, they just need to hear you. Once your story is public, Victoria can't touch you without drawing attention to herself. The fear of exposure becomes your shield." Deshawn added, "And if Taryn recovers that video, then the whole world sees the truth." Jordan nodded slowly. He wanted to be brave, but fear clung to him like a shadow. He had seen enough movies and real-life stories to know one thing. Powerful criminals didn't lose quietly. Just then, a sharp knock sounded on the door. Everyone froze. Alicia whispered, "Did you invite anyone?" Deshawn shook his head, whispering back, "No." The knock came again, this time softer, almost desperate. Deshawn approached cautiously and spoke through the door. "Who's there?" A trembling voice answered, "It's me, Taryn." Jordan rushed to unlock the door, but Alicia caught his arm. "Wait, ask her something only she would know." Deshawn raised his voice. "Taryn, what's the name of the old radio you fixed for me last week?" "The Zenith H845, she whispered, "and you promised to bring me plantain chips next time." Deshawn nodded. They could trust that. They opened the door quickly and pulled her inside. Taryn looked terrified, sweat dripped down her forehead and her hands shook violently. "What happened?" Alicia asked. Taryn placed a small plastic case containing the recovered memory chip on the table and whispered, "Victoria's men came to my shop." Jordan's heartbeat spiked. "They what?" Taryn nodded rapidly, tears forming in her eyes. "They said they were looking for someone, but I saw the way they scanned my tools, my workbench. They were looking for the phone." Alicia stepped closer. "Did they find it?" "No," Taryn replied. "I hid it inside an old speaker. They never checked there, but they said they'd come back." Jordan exhaled shakily. "We need to move now." Alicia carefully picked up the small plastic case. Inside was the tiny memory chip, the only surviving evidence of what Jordan saw. "Is it readable?" she asked. "I don't know," Taryn replied. "The chip isn't fully damaged, but it needs a data extraction device. I don't have that kind of equipment." Alicia closed her fist around the case. "Metro Voice does." Jordan's heart pounded. "So we go now?" Alicia looked at both men. "No, I go alone. If Victoria's people are tracking Jordan, bringing him into a public newsroom would be reckless." Deshawn agreed. "She's right, they're hunting you, son." Jordan shook his head. "No, I'm done hiding. If I'm going public, I need to stand up, not sit back." Alicia placed both hands on his shoulders, her voice firm yet gentle. "Jordan, going public is one thing, walking into the trap she expects is another. Let me extract the video first. Once we have proof, you'll speak." Jordan hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Okay." She turned to Taryn. "You should stay with us, it's not safe for you to go home." Taryn sat down shakily. "I was so scared I thought they'd kill me." Jordan sat beside her. "You're safe here, we won't let anything happen to you." Alicia grabbed her bag, tucked the memory chip inside and said, "I'll be back within the hour. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone unless they say the password." "What's the password?" Deshawn asked. Alicia smirked slightly. "Blue Horizon." She left quickly, disappearing into the storm-darkened street. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria was losing patience. Her enforcer stood before her once again. "We found the repair girl's shop. We'll check it again soon." Victoria's eye twitched. "Did she have the phone?" "We don't know yet." "You don't know," Victoria repeated slowly. The enforcer stiffened. Victoria stepped toward him, her voice calm but filled with venom. "I don't tolerate uncertainty. Jordan Brooks is alive, the journalist is involved, a young technician may have the evidence, and your plan so far has given me nothing but excuses." The enforcer lowered his head. Victoria continued, "I want results, not promises." "Yes, ma'am," he whispered. Victoria turned away, picking up her glass of wine. "And find Alicia Monroe," she added. "If she's carrying anything from that phone, retrieve it." The enforcer nodded and hurried out. Victoria sipped her wine, staring at the city lights. No loose ends. Back at the shop, Jordan paced again. Deshawn cleaned tools absent-mindedly. Taryn hugged herself nervously. Every sound outside made them jump. Every passing car felt like a threat. Jordan stopped packing. "I can't sit still, I need to know she's okay." Deshawn shook his head. "You'll make it worse if you follow her." Taryn whispered, "Do you think she'll get the video out?" "I hope so," Jordan replied. Minutes dragged slowly into nearly an hour. Rain began tapping lightly against the windows. Then, 3 knocks sounded on the door. Jordan froze. Deshawn held up a hand for silence. A voice said softly, "Blue Horizon." Jordan rushed to open the door. But the second he unlocked it, the door burst open violently. It wasn't Alicia. It was the enforcer. Jordan stumbled back as the enforcer stormed in, rainwater dripping from his coat, eyes blazing with triumph. "Took long enough to find you," he growled. Jordan's chest tightened with pure terror. Deshawn grabbed a hammer from the workbench. Taryn screamed. The enforcer stepped inside, blocking the exit. "You're not going anywhere." Jordan's heart pounded so loudly he could hardly hear. But the enforcer wasn't alone. 2 more men entered behind him. Jordan realized in that moment. They weren't here to talk. They were here to finish it. For a split second, the entire room froze. Jordan stood face to face with the enforcer whose shadow had haunted him for days. Deshawn gripped the hammer so tightly his knuckles turned white. Taryn backed into a corner, tears streaming down her cheeks. The enforcer took one step forward. Jordan's breath caught. Another step. Then, the window behind the workbench shattered. Glass exploded inward as a figure rolled through the opening and hit the ground hard. "Alicia! Move!" she shouted. Chaos exploded instantly. The enforcer lunged toward her, but Alicia swung a heavy metal toolbox with full force. It collided with his forearm, making him grunt in pain and stumble back. Jordan rushed toward her. "Alicia!" "No time," she shouted. "Run to the back." The two men accompanying the enforcer rushed forward. Deshawn slammed one of them in the chest with the hammer. The man fell back, gasping, but the blow wasn't enough to stop him for long. The enforcer regained his balance and roared, "Nobody leaves this room alive." Alicia grabbed Jordan's hand and dragged him toward the back exit, but the enforcer was faster. He blocked the doorway with a single step, towering over them. Jordan felt reality collapsing around him. There was no escape, no protection, nowhere left to run. The enforcer lifted a metal rod he had taken from the shop wall. "This ends." A thunderous boom shook the entire building. The walls trembled. The ceiling rattled. The lights flickered and went out. Everyone looked up in confusion and fear. Another boom. This time louder. "What was that?" Taryn cried. Alicia grabbed her phone to use as a flashlight, shining it toward the door. "That came from outside." Rain poured harder now, pounding the roof like drums. They heard shouting, tires screeching, and then sirens, dozens of them. Jordan's eyes widened. "Police!" The enforcer's face twisted. No, it's too soon." Alicia stepped toward him, voice sharp and unyielding. "You wanted a storm, it's here." Blue and red lights flashed against the shop windows. Voices boomed through megaphones. "Step out with your hands up. This building is SURRUNDD." Jordan turned to Alicia in disbelief. You called them." Alicia shook her head. "No, someone else did." A loud crash sounded at the front door as officers began forcing entry. The enforcer panicked. "We have to go," he shouted to his men. One of the men grabbed a small bag from his coat. "We still need the chip, we can't leave without it." Alicia smirked coldly and placed her hand on her jacket pocket. "You mean this?" She pulled out the small plastic case containing the memory chip. The enforcer's eyes widened with rage. He reached for it. But Jordan stepped in front of Alicia. "No," Jordan said, voice steady despite his trembling body. "It's over." The enforcer raised the metal rod, ready to strike. The back door burst open. Armed officers stormed inside, shouting commands. "Drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them. Get on the ground now." The enforcer looked around wildly, trapped, cornered, outnumbered. Still, he didn't move. Until one of the officers stepped forward and pressed a rifle toward him. "I said drop it." The enforcer finally let the metal rod fall. It clattered against the concrete floor. His men surrendered as well. Jordan collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed with relief. Alicia crouched beside him. "It's okay, you're safe now." But Jordan shook his head. How did they know who called them? As officers cuffed the men and escorted them out, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "I did." They all turned. It was Taryn. Jordan blinked. "You." She nodded shakily. "When Alicia left earlier, I got scared. I felt like something bad was going to happen, so I called the police and told them armed men were threatening us. I didn't know if they would believe me, but I had to try." Alicia smiled softly. "You saved all of us." Taryn wiped her eyes. "I just didn't want to die." The room fell quiet as the adrenaline slowly faded. But the fight wasn't over yet. The enforcer, being dragged out, shouted desperately. "You think this ends her? Victoria will destroy all of you, she owns everything." An officer shoved him forward, silencing him. Alicia turned to Jordan. "We go to the station, we give them everything, and we back it up with your testimony and that chip." Jordan nodded, though nerves twisted inside him. "I'm ready." By evening, Metro Voice News released the first breaking headline. Witness CLAIMS billionaire Victoria Carson buried Maid in secret grave. Video recovery UNDRWAY. Cameras filled the police station as Alicia gave statements and Jordan, shaking but brave, repeated everything he saw. Deshawn stood behind him the whole time, a steady presence. Taryn sat nearby, gripping her phone, waiting for word that the memory chip had been successfully read. Hours passed. Then a technician stepped into the waiting room holding a laptop and the recovered video. Alicia stood. Does it work? The technician nodded. Clear as day, it shows everything. Jordan exhaled a breath he didn't know he was holding. Then Maya gets justice. Within minutes, officers stormed toward Victoria's mansion with warrants. But when they arrived, Victoria was gone. She had fled moments before police arrived, leaving behind a house filled with luxury and hidden compartments of illegal drugs. The city erupted in shock. Politicians distanced themselves. Her investors abandoned her. Her empire crumbled in a single night. But Victoria Carson herself vanished like smoke. She had slipped away into the storm. Weeks later, Jordan stood with Alicia, Deshawn, and Taryn at a small memorial garden where Maya's body had been exhumed and given a proper burial. Jordan placed a single white flower on her grave. "I'm sorry you went through this," he whispered, "but I promise the world knows your story now." Alicia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You saved others by speaking up, people will remember that." Deshawn added softly, "You did the right thing, son." Taryn wiped her eyes, "We all did." Jordan looked at them, his unlikely team, bound together by danger, fear, and courage. For the first time in weeks, he felt peace. But as they walked away from the grave, the camera panned across a nearby street. A black car sat parked in the distance. In the driver's seat, a woman with sharp eyes and a cold expression watched them silently. Victoria Carson. Her lips curled slightly into a smile. "This isn't over," she whispered, starting the engine. Her car rolled away quietly. The hunt wasn't finished. But for now, Jordan had won the first battle.
Thank you for watching Black Race Tales. Remember, every story carries a lesson, and every lesson carries our legacy. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who needs its message today. See you in the next tale.